guys, welcome to session 3 of our crash course in the concepts and principles of rhetoric. 5 questions on the board. As I always say, please don't check notes, please try to answer them from memory and then check them against your notes. So can you pause the video and answer the 5 questions on the board? Super, so I'll quickly run through the answers. Okay, so I'll quickly run through the answers. Number 1, what is rhetoric? The art of persuasion, the ability to influence and persuade others. It's not a list of techniques. It's not like a toolkit of things. It's a concept of influence. Where did rhetoric originate from? Ancient Greece, the growth of democracy. What is logos? The ability to be logical, to build a factual and clear argument. Ethos. What is ethos? The ability to sell yourself, to present yourself as being trustworthy and reliable, but also to enact a relationship with an audience, even if it's a big audience. Why are facts important when trying to influence and persuade? They create credibility and knowledge. Through factual details, we show we know what we're talking about and help to build a sustained line of argument. Okay, so I thought today, rather than moving on to pathos, which is the final part of the Aristotelian triad we need to look at, we'll just carry on with logos a little bit more. And I wanted to introduce you to syllogisms, which I think are quite fun. Well, at least it's a fun word. And basically what it means is a logical way of drawing a conclusion from 2 related facts or premises. So it derives from Greek and basically it means a conclusion or inference. So a really good way to present facts is not just to present them in isolation, but to present 2 facts that are related and then draw a conclusion from those facts. Now, this one obviously works perfectly. All birds lay eggs. A swan is a type of bird, therefore swans lay eggs. You can see how those 2 facts, all birds lay eggs, fact number 1. A swan is a type of bird, fact number 2. Therefore swans lay eggs, conclusion, which is logical. And I imagine some of you can already see how that could get tricky, how you could present 2 related facts and draw a conclusion for your audience which seems logical, but perhaps is a little bit tricky. And that's what politicians are really good at. Okay, so can you just make a quick note of that, of what a syllogism is and the example, because then it will help you later. This is an example I was just talking about of how a syllogism can actually be a bit misleading. So all fish live underwater. That's a fact. That is true. Seaweed lives underwater. Also a fact. Possibly not all types, but most. Therefore, seaweed is a type of fish. Clearly not true. But what I've tried to show you there is how you can take facts, draw a conclusion in a way which can be a little bit misleading, a little bit tricky. Okay? Okay, and that can be done here. So we've got here a potential for a 3-part syllogism, which ends with, therefore all teachers are grumpy, therefore all teenagers are lazy. So I could do the first one by filling in 2 facts. So I could start by saying, Mr. Jones is grumpy. And then I could do my second fact, oh dear, pushed the wrong thing. Mr. Jones is a teacher. Therefore, all teachers are grumpy. Completely untrue, isn't it? Jolly as anything. But you can see how that would create. These 2 things are potentially true. I mean, this is a bit subjective, isn't it? Grumpy isn't really a fact, it's a non-fact, but it works for a syllogism. But we're presenting one piece of information which seems logical and true, a second piece which is logical and true, but drawing a misleading conclusion. Can you please apply the same process to this statement, teenagers are lazy? So 2 statements which are informative, potentially accurate, but actually a misleading conclusion. Great, so hopefully you had something like, Sophie is lazy, Sophie is a teenager, therefore all teenagers are lazy. Yeah, obviously you're not. Some of you are hugely active, some of you are lazy, some of you are not, but it's a misleading conclusion. And we can apply that to a more persuasive passage or a more persuasive task. So we've got 2 potential persuasive topics for speeches here. The first, school uniform should be abolished. And the second, all students should take part in weekly litter picks. So I can create a syllogism using this. So I could say, for my first fact, I find school uniform uncomfortable when I am uncomfortable, I find it harder to learn. Just correct that little typo there. So I've got two statements which I'm saying are facts. They're, not strictly speaking facts, but they count for this. I find school uniform uncomfortable. When I am uncomfortable, I find it harder to learn. So then I can draw the logical conclusion, therefore, school uniform should be abolished. Now, of course, that's ridiculous, isn't it? It's entirely flimsy to suggest that because one person doesn't like wearing uniform, that it should be abolished. But it's the way in which it works, and this is a basic model of how you can use these kinds of statements in order to try to draw a conclusion which seems logical. So can you have a go at this one? Have a go at doing the same thing. Two statements which are facts, non-facts, they're statements, and then what seems to be a logical conclusion. Pause the video, spend a few minutes, and then we'll see what you've got. Okay, so hopefully you found that quite manageable. I would personally have done something like, some students drop litter on, or actually I think I would have said all students purchase items in wrappers, okay, in some kind of packaging. What is what I mean by wrappers? Number two, some packaging ends up on the floor, therefore all students should do litter picks. So hopefully you can see there how I've reached this kind of slightly erroneous conclusion, that all students purchase items in wrappers, in packaging. Some packaging ends up on the floor, therefore all students should do litter picks. And that's how they build up these lines of argument. Okay, so all I'd like to do, based on that little mini tutorial on this technique, is to go back to your speech aimed at persuading other students to improve the local environment and add a three-part syllogism into it. So you should already have done your ethos paragraph. So you should already have done a lovely opening where you make yourself sound all credible and knowledgeable and lovely and a human I can believe in. You should then have set out some facts about the terrible impact of pollution on the beaches, so that I feel that there's some facts about why litter picks are important. And the last thing I'd like to do is just to whack in a syllogism. One of those three-part logical things where you give two statements or facts which are true or at least are plausible, and then you give a final conclusion which may or may not be completely true. Thanks guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.